Now, this says I'm live. Coming on a little early so I can check things out on this new computer. I hope people can find it. Um, Let me know if you're here. Say hi. Again, I am trying to figure out how to use this live software, this live, whatever this is. And I am just not used to it, and I've been practicing, so hopefully that'll help. Let me see here. How do I do this? Well,
Good morning.
okay, I'm going to pretend like everybody's here, and I'm not just talking to myself, but even if I am talking to myself, I might learn something. So, if nothing else, it'll be on my Facebook page, and you can watch it later. Anin, Miss Cozy Quay, Nin Dig Ojibwe Mong, Erik Songab Dudam, Emeritus Gichi. Grandmother? Yeah. Emeritus, that what threw me. That's my new name, Emeritus, meaning I retired. Of course, Anin, I see your spirit. Um, and I'm the Red Woman. I'm an Ojibwe person and of the Deer Clan. Those are all fancy names and fancy titles which really don't tell you all that much about me. So today's podcast is going to be a little different. Um, it's going to be more about my story. And hopefully, being it's my story, there'll be little nuggets that you can relate to too. Because I'm going through a transformative stage of my life. It's actually been going on for about 9, almost 10 months. Slowly, speeding up at other times. And of course, the health issues are showing up. And I see that as a good thing. Because if you remember way back when I started the feather teaching, I talked about that we're bodies, souls, and spirits. And in the core of that is ourself. So anything that affects our mind, anything that affects our body, anything that affects our spirit is going to show up in the other spheres as well. So during this transformative time, I've had a lot of things show up physically, as a lot of you are aware of. The first being some cardiology issues. It runs in the bloodlines, but more than that, this is a true story. When I was going through social work school, one of the classes that was required was called On Death and Dying, and it was based on Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and the stages of grief and other things. But as part of our participation in that class, we had to fill out our death certificate. There was a death certificate. We had to put our name and all of our statistics on it. And then it came down to the line that said cause of death. I put a broken heart. Mind you, I was in my late 20s, maybe 30 when I wrote that. And I listed my age of dying from a broken heart at 54. Well, I'm 75 now, so I obviously lived past my projection. But the broken heart thing, at that age, where did that come from? And I can remember having dreams at the time of me near a body of water in a car. And I don't think I was driving. There was somebody else in control. And hanging from the trees were body parts. That dream has stuck with me my whole entire life. And I've spent my life trying to figure out what those body parts were. And so now when I'm experiencing health problems, I see it as a sign that with the Jaguar medicine, with Jungian psychology, which I've studied, and with spirituality, which I've studied, it's all coming together for me now. Because you can't have something going on in one area without it affecting the other areas of your life. Body, soul, spirit. Or body, mind, spirit. So, I begin with that. I begin with that so that it can illustrate how far back our health problems started. I've been living with that for 45 years. And when I made it, and oddly enough, when I was 54, was the first time I ended up in the hospital with cardiac issues. Um, Cardiologist said I was trying to have a heart attack. Um, it was very much like these last times, only I had a stent placement at the time. I was 54. Yeah, I was 54. And at the same time, that same week actually, I made contact with my birth mother to find out that my grandfather, birth grandfather, which turns out to be wrong, but stay with me, he died at 54 from cardiac issues. And people on that side of the family, including a cousin just a few years ago, who was about that age, or 50-ish, died of cardiac issues. So there's this thread going through my life that I wasn't even aware of at the time. But where did that come from? Where would I say I was dying for a broken heart? Well, let me get to some definitions first. Because I talk about jaguar medicine. There they are, right? The night jaguar, the jaguar of the underworld, and the jaguar of the day world. Okay? But you notice, you got to go through this guy to get to this guy. And it's the same with Jungian psychology. That is, the shadow, the dark night of the soul, is a place we have to go to get to our true self. And in the Toltec tradition, which I weave into my practice, like I've said before, I'm using a macaw feather today. I had a friend that had she's still alive, had a macaw. And they gifted me this feather. It was so beautiful. And they gifted me this feather. And I treasure it, right along with my eagle feathers. And this is kind of a nod to my friends in the Yucatan, and for my experiences in the Yucatan and meeting jaguar. Okay. So today I'm using this feather. The matote from the Toltec spirituality, which is Central South America. He calls it the matote, and it's a metaphor for what's going on in your mind, for your thoughts. Just like the shadow is for Jung, and the night jaguar is. All three of these things, I believe, are just different expressions of the same thing. And I use the matote a lot because it talks about how your socialization, how your culture, how your religion, and I differentiate between religion and spirituality, affect who you think you are. And lots of time, it's just not even the truth about who you are. For example, right now I've been doing, again, some Toltec study with jaguar. And I had to ID some of the matote up here that purports to tell me who or what I am from the outside in. Okay? For example, growing up, I was always called a big girl. I was heads above other girls my age, and since I found my birth family, I realized that the women in my birth family were large women. None of us were petite little things. um, we were strong, and a lot of us were farmers and ranchers and pioneers. And on my mother's side, on my birth mother's side, I actually go back to the Mayflower 4 times. So what does that make me? I don't really care. I really don't care. But I was too big. Um, I had the belief that it was all my fault. Whatever happened in my family was my fault. I was the problem child, the scapegoat. Okay? Had an older sister who, died recently. And she was the favored one because she was legally had some real trouble with her eyesight, and had to go to special schools and things. So I wasn't neglected, but I was the one that would run naked up the street as a little girl, and they would have to chase me. I still don't like clothes much, but I do wear them, of course. I would climb the trees in the backyard, the cedar trees, because if I could get halfway up, no one could reach me. And so I can only imagine how frustrated the rest of the family was, but I wasn't going to be contained. Still that way, actually. So I was always considered trouble. That was, my mother used to call me trouble. So I believed everything was my fault. This is the mitote. This is what I was taught about me. Okay? So that gave me inferiority feelings, of course. And that I was less important than other people in the family. And no wonder I was trying to escape, because they weren't mean-spirited in the sense of trying to be abusive. They just didn't know any better. And they had a daughter who's older than me, was 8 years older than me, that was compliant. And I was defiant. And so I can get why they called me trouble. But I internalized that. To think that whenever anything went wrong, it was my fault. And I've spent a good 30 or 40 years trying to unravel that. That's a shadow. That's a night jaguar. That's the underworld. That's the mitote. Beliefs you have about yourself. And being female, of course. There were other things associated with my gender, because I was a tomboy. That's what they called me. Climbing trees, not cheese. Well, maybe that too. Riding horses, running in the woods. Like to play with trucks and cars and horses. And horses. Then, of course, then there were horses. I wasn't much of a doll person. So they called me a tomboy. So there's something wrong with that, isn't there? I wasn't girly enough. Still aren't. But that's what the mitote is about. It's about the singular idea that everyone has to fall in line. And anything from that is a deviation or is deviant behavior. Think about how that kind of thing has affected your life. And one thing that came out of this in the middle of the night this past week, I always wake up 3-ish, be a little before, a little after, but right in there. And I've learned that that's when me and Spirit can really get down. So, what is it tonight, Spirit, that you want me to learn? So I was listening to some Carl Jung videos. And he said one thing which I have heard many times, but this time it really struck me to the point where I wrote it down. See if you can relate to this. Productivity notes. You're only lovable when you betray yourself. You're only lovable when you betray yourself. Let that sink in. Because we're always trying to please other people. We're always trying to do things that make us lovable. We're always trying to put others before yourself, and that others are more important than yourself. We even teach that in church, don't we? Love your neighbor as yourself. Only we've lost the context. If you love your neighbor as yourself, that means you have to love yourself first. And of course, in order to love yourself first, the first part of that commandment is you have to love the Lord your God. You have to know yourself spiritually. And then that also came to me that, oh yeah, I am a spirit. I'm a spirit Lord. Ogi Chagwa. How can everything be my fault? Well, of course it can't. Okay? People just want you to believe that so that you comply with their wants and needs above your own. And then they'll call you selfish if you don't. Or if you tell the truth, they'll reject you, abandon you. We all have that experience in some form or another. How do we heal that? Well, that's part of the transformation. I'm going to remind us that I speak of spiritual growth, transformation, call it whatever you want, is a spiral staircase. Goes up and up. And each time it goes around on some of the same issues, which may be different for some people, okay? They're highly individual. But whatever the trauma was in your life, you keep going over and over it again, but at a higher level every time. Hopefully. Sometimes we get stuck. Okay? I actually sometimes call myself a professional ass kicker, because I have to confront when people are stuck and really confront the matote that has them stuck. And that's not always easy. Change is hard. We want to believe that what we believe is the right thing. The question I asked leading up to this video was, what are your 10 I ams? When you describe yourself, and I used to do this with my clients, I would have them make a list for me that starts out with I am, and then fill in the blank. And almost without exception, everyone would start out with identification with something other than themselves or someone other than themselves. I am a wife. I am a mother. I am a sister. I am a brother. I am a husband. I am a father. I am an accountant. I am a doctor. I am an Indian chief. Okay? But none of those things tell me anything about you. And none of those things tell me about me. It's me in relation to others, something outside myself, other people, society, schools. And when we are so connected to things outside of ourselves, what goes on inside of ourselves gets hidden. But it doesn't hide forever. It'll come out as mental illness, depression, suicidal behavior, drug addiction, alcoholism. We try to medicate ourselves away rather than spend time in the underworld with Jaguar, our own underworld, our own personal underworld, what our true thoughts, feelings, sense of who we are, our gifts, our spirit, okay? Something that's intrinsic within ourselves. And we have to go through the dark night of the soul, or as Jung calls it, the shadow, the underworld with the Jaguar. Okay. The other thing about it is that unless and until we do that, we're living an unauthentic life. And when we're living an unauthentic life, we can't be happy. Why are people in Western society so drug addicted? Why are people in this culture so frantic about getting ahead, about making money, about all the things outside of themselves? I don't see too many people being frantic about, hey, what's going on with me? It's how big are my toys? Oh, how do I look to other people? Am I a success in life? And that's usually measured by what you possess. House, cars, clothes. Just think of the matote that's coming at you all day, every day, through advertising, telling you you'd be a better person if only you did this, or only you wore that, or bought this. It's a constant feeding yourself. Okay? Which is why some of us turn off media. Okay? We're being fed all the wrong food. We need the spiritual food, the psychological food, the things that will help us get to our true self. Scripturally, one of my favorite scriptures, and I even wrote this in my master's thesis in 19. I found my thesis. It wasn't as buried as I thought it was. Wrote it in 1987. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that which is good and acceptable in the will of God. Wow. What does it mean to be conformed to this world? Isn't that the matote? Isn't that the parasite that keeps us, that eats us alive, trying to measure up, trying to be what we're told we should be? and then wonder why we're unhappy, or, well, we don't seem to have the fruits of the Spirit and the joy and the peace and the love. We can't. You got to have that loving yourself as a spirit along with God, and bringing that into fruition and fulfillment in order to then pass it on, pay it forward. One of the things, I'm going to say something now, and a lot of people, especially those that call themselves Christian, and I don't have any problem with that, okay? But I'm going to say something that a lot of people are going to call heresy. Because I've described now the personal underworld where all the truth about yourself is hidden and repressed. And the same with the shadow, okay? And the mitote and the parasite that keeps repeating who you are in the world, your core beliefs, whether they're true or not, okay? I believe I've come to understand the Jungian shadow, the underworld night jaguar, and the devil are one and the same entity. Think about that for a minute. How can they be one and the same entity? Well, they all lie. They're all lying to you about who you are. I mean, even think about the peacemaker when he was tempted by the devil, you know, to conform to the world and to be king of the world, basically. That's what the mitote does. That's what our underworld self does. It's always tempting us to be something other than who we are. I hesitate every once in a while because none of this is planned. I always pray and smudge before I do a podcast that Spirit has my thoughts and my words in my mouth, and that I'm a vessel. So every once in a while I have to stop and hear what's being said, where to go. Okay. But yeah, then you combine that the shadow, the mitote, and the devil, and I'm reading from my notes now, from my 3 o'clock in the morning notes, that they're one and the same. The parasite that eats you alive if you're not consciously aware of your core beliefs and your true self. And that, I call that the unholy trinity. Think about that. That's the unholy trinity. Those things that prevent us from really knowing and understanding who and what we are. And that's where all our pain comes from. It's also where all our disease comes from. On this journey that I've been on with my health, I really see things, or my body, how did I put it? Another note. That my body is self-healing and revealing to me where the resistance was in me where the shadow was in me that I had to confront. You know, think about the jaguar for a minute. If you've ever watched a video, especially of a black jaguar, the way they hunt, they're crouched down and they crouch and they're looking all around. And they're very keen and aware of themselves and move silently. Well, that's kind of what it's been like for me with jaguar medicine. Looking very keenly at my surroundings and what I'm doing and where I've been and what's around me. I even wear my medallion almost all the time to keep me mindful that right now I've had to look at some things and I've had to let some things go. What things have I let go? Well, I let go of my broken heart. Yay. How did you do that? Well, I've lost a lot of people in the last 6 months. A lot of my sister, my brother, my niece. Some from old age, some from disease, some from suicide. Some from just our time was up. You know, for everything there is a season. And I've known for a while that it was time for me to stop, slow down. And I've been gradually attempting to do that, but, you know, sometimes the matote pulls you along. And the people pleasing pulls you along, and it's hard to put the brakes on. So my heart did it for me. Okay, here you go. The things that have broken your heart, you need to stop doing. What are those things? Well, I fight against misogyny. I've been doing that for my whole life. And I can relate to you many instances in my life where the misogynistic view of the men involved is what caused the downfall of a project or what was going on. They wouldn't be led by a woman, and it happened just recently at another gathering. Those of you who were there know what I mean. The men didn't like being told that our society is matrilineal. And I'm speaking of the Anishinaabe and most indigenous societies are matrilineal. It's the women that are the leaders and the teachers, and the men are the doers. But it's been backwards for so long that it's almost incomprehensible. And is incomprehensible because people don't want to look at that side of themselves. They don't want to see the balance in the feather. They want to maintain what they know and the state of the world. I read a meme on Facebook the other day, I should have copied it, that said, "Women, please stand up and rule the world now. We men have had it for millennium and we've messed it up badly." Well, there's some truth in that. The divine feminine has been hidden. And actually, that's what I wrote my master's thesis on. It's called A Feminist Paradigm for Christian Counseling. Because most Christian counseling has nothing to do with women. It's all patriarchal. And you have to use the influence of the divine feminine. And that's also how I weave into my practice and in my teaching, that there has to be the balance. See, I think that being called a tomboy is a good thing. At the time I didn't, because it was pejorative. but I've come to look at it as, yeah, I have a nice balance. I can be as feminine as I want to be. I've always done jobs that men have done. I can be competitive. I'm a winner. I can be all those things in the world. But within myself, well, I see myself as having a balance of my masculine and feminine energy that I can call on whichever I need. I'm not blocked from one side or the other. You know, I think we have a lot to learn about that in this culture, but that's a topic for another time. Hey. Then I had the, oh God, unfortunate experience of having a kidney stone. Absolutely excruciating. I'd rather bear twins. I've had a child. I know what childbirth feels like, and it's not as bad as a kidney stone. And those of you that have had kidney stones will agree. And in fact, that's how I described it to the paramedics when they came to the house. I feel like I'm trying to push out a baby, but I'm not pregnant. And one, are you sure? Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. But be that as it may, I really see that as my body releasing things that I don't need anymore. And along with that, a bladder infection and bloody urine and peeing like a racehorse on Lasix. And I wasn't on Lasix. Just my body releasing all of these toxins as I delve deeper into myself to allow my body to self-heal. With it, I've lost 20 pounds. Probably a lot of fluid, but you know, I've been spent my adult life trying to lose weight and never could. So been on every diet there was, and I always maintain right at this certain weight, which now I'm about 20 to 25 pounds less than I've always been. Pretty cool. Okay. So the body self-heals as we do our work. Remember, body, soul, spirit, what affects us in one sphere will reverberate in all the spheres. So this has been a good time. Yes, I'm resting. Spring is finally sprung here in Maine. Fixing up my front patio, my front porch and my back patio to where I can sit outside and it's pleasant and have a little fairy garden. Nothing too tough to take care of. I don't want maintenance anymore. I just want eye candy. And I'll put some live flowers out there here in the next week. But I see all of this working together for good. Okay? Even the losses, even the people that are no longer in my life actively or have passed away. The time has come to move on, to let go. Because if we keep hoarding, whether it be people, friends, things, ideas, we can never have a breakthrough. We have to literally allow ourselves to flush our mind like a toilet so it can refill with healing waters, the water of life. All these new thoughts coming into my mind. So, in summary, try your 10 IM, see what comes out. I'm going to give you a big hint. The first one should be I am a spirit, or I am a child of God, or something along those lines, right? That's your real identity. Ponder that one. And we'll ponder that some more as these cardinal hours continue. If I can ever figure out how to work this. I think I just might have to get my own software because this Facebook thing confuses me. Unless somebody knows how to do it, I might try YouTube or something else. Stay tuned. Okay. But in summary, next time I'm going to talk more about the unholy trinity, the shadow, the metote, and the devil. And if that disturbs your spirit, good. That should disturb you. And it should help you start thinking about your beliefs, your core beliefs. What is it that you believe? And is it working for you? That's one of Dr. Phil's lines that I love it. How's that working for you? Well, if you have core beliefs that are from the metote and from the underworld and from your shadow self, then you're not clicking on all cylinders. Okay? You're not clicking on all cylinders. And remember, we're only lovable when we betray ourselves. That's what we're taught. To conform. To be good workers, good students, good wives, good mothers, good fathers. To follow a script. A monolithic script that doesn't allow for stereo, doesn't allow for gifts. You can only, if you're female, you can only do this. If you're male, you have to do this. And all that goes with that. How damaging that is. So pray about it. Make your list and pray about it. Ask Spirit, where is the metote for me? Ask Jaguar, what is the underworld in me? What are the ideas and beliefs in me that conform to the world but have nothing to do with the will of God? Called God, peacemaker, whatever higher power. It's just the prime mover, the prime movement of creation. And we're part of that. We're part of that. We forget that. So until next time, Chi Miigwech, I'll keep working on getting this glitchy technological thing down. And in the meantime, I wish you peace, which means to be at one within yourself and with Spirit. Bamape.